Most of the time, we screw up in a relationship. It's quite understandable. It's almost uncanny too. If you are or ever have been in a relationship that's meant more pain than love, more tears than joy, and more giving than what you're getting in return, then this book that I'm going to discuss today is for you. Women Who Love Too Much is the biggest wake-up call you'll ever get. Hey everyone, welcome back to Books.com Litcan with me, Subhashini. But before I start reviewing this book, there are a few things you should know about its author, Robin Norwood. She's a world-renowned and highly experienced psychotherapist who specializes in addiction, codependency, compulsive overeating, and unhealthy patterns of love relationships. Over the years, she's collected dozens of stories, and of course, she tells some of them in this book too. She also debunks myths about crazy love and explains why loving too much is harmful not only for the one who loves, but also for the one to whom this feeling is directed. But firstly, let's understand, what does excessive love mean? If you choose someone who has problems in his life, like he's a borderline alcoholic, an addict, and con artist, or he has a case against him, or he's a married man who promises the world to you but then never leaves his wife and you're magnetically drawn towards him. Okay, it's possible that none of the above is true. But let's say he's non-committal, a partner who's emotionally cold, hurts you, hits you, exploits you financially, but you love him very much and devote yourself to caring for him, sympathizing with him, and you believe that you can fix him. If that was the case, why don't you go get someone who needs to be in a reformatory in the first place and decide to love him? Not only that, but also if a normal person approaches you and truly loves you, you'll hate him and feel bored with him. Does this sound absurd? All I'm trying to say is the author suggests such kind of love is excessive. Addiction is not only for drugs. You could be addicted to love excessively or even be pathologically attached. But what's behind the need to win over a man who's clearly not that interested in you? This is what we'll find out in this book. Though it's easy to dismiss these unhealthy relationship patterns as bad judgment or bad luck, the truth is more disturbing and more freeing as well. Most of us confuse love with emotional pain because the majority of the media and the movies especially that we are exposed to reinforce this misperception and have done so for centuries across many cultures and languages. The setting and characters may be different, but the lesson always boils down to being a woman in love is being a woman in pain. Here, Norwood explains this through the case of Jill and Randy. When we talk about women who love too much, what we really mean is that these women develop obsessive feelings for a man and then wrongly label that obsession as love. Women like Jill in this book allow their obsession to control their behaviors and emotions. Jill's compulsive nightly calls to Randy is an example of this. Even though it hurts Jill to hear Randy repeatedly say that he isn't sure what he wants and it hurts when he ignores her, she still couldn't walk away from him. Women like Jill have one thing in common. They equate feelings of love with feeling of pain and falsely believe that the more love hurts, the more genuine that love is. Unfortunately, love to the point of madness is not romance, no matter how popularized it is by the media, mass culture, and even works of world literature. This is a dangerous disease, and the sooner you start to recover, the sooner you'll know true female happiness. Now coming to the main question, why women who love too much are typically attracted to men who are emotionally cold, distant, and unavailable for a meaningful relationship. Some of you might assume he would be handsome, smart, or otherwise attractive in some way, but they're often none of these. Often the men who fit the bill are themselves dysfunctional. Tragically, the answer often lies in the women's childhood. Unhealthy relationships often stem from a woman's quest for validation and self-identity through romantic love. Norwood emphasizes the fact that a woman does not end up loving too much by chance. The roots of relational and emotional dependence are found in the dysfunctional family in which she grew up, like abusive parents, one or both of them were alcoholics, she was rejected by one or both parents, or she took on responsibility at an early stage of her life, parents were physically dependent, absent, frustrated, disinterested, or with a lack of love and affection. These unhealthy conditions are then involuntarily reflected on the mentality and choices made by the child in adolescence and later throughout her entire life. The important thing is that the family taught you to love wrongly. For you, love has become synonymous with conflicts, defeat, victory, and quarrels. For you, love is nothing but taking responsibility for the other person and providing them with help without expecting anything in return, and after that, striving to change them becomes the focus of your life. Thus, ending up choosing life partners similar to your parents in order not to change your familiar environment. Linda is depicted as classic rescuer in the book who's always attracted to men with substance abuse issues. Her story illuminates the deep-seated desire to save others as a means of coping with her own feelings of inadequacy. I'm reminded of Arohi of Ashiki 2, who knowingly takes the responsibility of Rahul, who's an alcoholic, and thinks of sacrificing her career for him. As adults, these women have unresolved feelings of doubt about their father's love for them. Therefore, they go through their romantic lives constantly seeking men who exhibit the same sort of emotional coldness or unavailability that their fathers did. For love, they may tolerate abusive behavior or emotional neglect because they believe love is tied to struggles or sacrifice. Now you may ask why. You may even argue they should avoid such men since they had already had a bad experience where they earned for love. But subconsciously, these women are hoping to put right what was so horribly wrong in their childhood. By finding emotionally unavailable man and committing themselves wholly to him, they hope deep down to win his affection and finally prove to themselves that they are worthy of the love their father denied to them all those years ago. Many women rationalize their partner's behavior or make excuses to avoid confronting the reality of the relationship. Third issue that is discussed in this book is, apart from being obsessed to unavailable men, these women who love too much are addicted to substances themselves too. When things get out of hand, these women become relationship junkies, addicted to men and hooked on emotional pain. In an effort to numb their deepest childhood issues, some women also develop addictions to drugs, alcohol, or sugary foods. These dependencies involving food are developed as coping mechanism to distract themselves, escape from reality, and numb that huge sense of emptiness deep inside. For such women, recovery from their addiction to emotionally unavailable men must also be accompanied by recovery from their addictions. Now, why must these recoveries happen simultaneously? Because as these women become more dependent on food, drugs, or alcohol, they also feel guilty, ashamed, and full of self-loathing. As their negative feelings about themselves intensify, they become even more desperate for the sense of reassurance that a romantic relationship promises to provide. They look for a partner to swoop in and build up their sense of self-esteem again, to love them especially when they hate themselves. Unfortunately, woman who loves too much looks for exactly the wrong person to provide her this reassurance. Very quickly, a vicious cycle of substance abuse, bad relationships, and rejection establishes itself, and the situation can spiral out of control. If you had watched The Dirty Picture by Vidya Balan, which depicts the life of Silksmitha, you would understand this situation better. Here, Norwood quotes the case of Brenda, who is overweight and knows well about the dangers of loving too much when coupled with food addiction. Brenda marries an unfaithful alcoholic who resembled her father in many ways. As marriage worsens, so does her addictions, and she begins compulsively shoplifting as well as starving herself. Unfortunately, she gets arrested for stealing before she seeks treatment. The book combines personal anecdotes, psychological insights, and therapeutic frameworks to help women understand why they develop these unhealthy attachments and how they can break free from them. The author provides a roadmap for women to identify their patterns, face their fears, and break free from destructive cycles. Cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, self-assessment, and support groups are suggested as tools for healing. Well, here she offered not only the actual situations of toxic and destructive love, but also methods of resolution and emotional recovery. By reading, you'll learn how to stop loving too much, and you'll become a healthy, self-confident, and happy woman. I appreciated Norwood's analysis of attitudes about love, and man and woman relationships often prevent people from getting help because this kind of destructive, painful, and dysfunctional love is what true love or being a good wife, girlfriend, daughter, mother is all about. What was really eye-opening for me was when Norwood explained the connection between caring and control. That women who are addicted to relationships often use their desire to help their significant other to control their behavior. Of course, this is set up for disaster and heartache, but women keep repeating this sick pattern over and over. Personally, I would have wished for shorter chapters going through cases briefly only and focusing mainly on keywords to remind A. what is happening in the relationship, B. how to apply what you learned in this book in real life. And it is strange because the author started that way with a checklist outlining 15 recurring issues in this type of relationship and among this type of person that loves too much. Unfortunately, that concept was later abandoned, though I'm not certain why. The book was written for the layman, so there aren't clinical terms being used or overused, which I could imagine is part of the book's continued success after about 3 decades on the market. First, Robin Norwood is convinced you cannot change others in any way, but can change yourself. And this is a guarantee that the relationship you are unhappy with will also change. They will either fall apart or get stronger, but they will definitely not remain as uncomfortable as before. Secondly, in order to build healthy relationships with men, you must first build them with yourself, because all the search for suffering, throwing from one scumbag to another, all this unconscious need for drama and instability, all this is from an inner emptiness that needs to be filled. Therefore, the author advises women to take care of yourself, direct your energy towards improving your life, not changing someone else. A man's problems, even if he's a legal husband, are his problems, and it'll be better and more useful for him if he solves them himself. Reading this book evokes very different reactions. At first, like that first year medical student, you turn hypochondriac and look for signs of the disease in yourself. And a lot of you may detect some symptoms in yourself. Then, you may want to discuss with the author, not to argue, but to ask a few questions to clarify your doubts. I was especially curious to read the chapter Beauty and the Beast, because this is my favorite children's movie, and there they analyze how the fairy tale can be interpreted. We all know Belle changes the Beast thanks to her love. We think that if we love someone enough, he will change and become the person we imagined. Of course, it never happens like that in real life. I appreciated the ideas that you cannot change your partner, you only can change yourself. Sarah, another profile that Norwood shares, has spent years in an on-again, off-again relationship with a man who is emotionally unavailable. Every time she attempts to break up, she finds herself drawn back by moments of charm and allure. Norwood illustrates how Sarah struggled to value herself, often sacrificing her needs for validation from her partner. Through therapy, Sarah learns to establish boundaries, ultimately helping her to choose healthier relationships. Similarly, Linda, the previously mentioned rescuer, with therapy begins to recognize patterns in her behavior and ultimately attends support groups which empower her to start focusing on her own life and healing rather than fixing others. I think this book is necessary to be read by all women, not because we are in same situation with women mentioned in this book, but because the nature of all women is to be kind and pleasing others. Then we can understand how much kindness is logical in relationships. This may sound too pretentious, but I would say that this book is a must-read for all young girls who are just starting to build relationships, as well as for women whose relationships are somehow going wrong. It seems to me that if read in a timely manner, it can protect against numerous youthful mistakes and unhealthy relationships, and in long run from episodes of domestic violence, broken lives, and physical and moral trauma. The really brilliant point is that it talks about the idea of acceptance in relationships. And by that, I don't mean accepting that he's a narcissist, an addict, or physically assaults you. These are things no one accepts. But what if he's different from you in certain traits? He's an introvert and you are the opposite. He values his work very much and you want him to coax you and be comfy. He likes to sleep on the edge of the bed and you too want to sleep on the same side. Acceptance is a solution. Accept his qualities like this and focus on yourself. With time, you'll either learn to sanctify his good qualities or you'll feel that you no longer need his limited presence. That is, we should stop drawing the character of the person in front of us according to our mood. So while I like this book for some reasons, there are a few flaws that irk me and that seem like somewhat an oversight and paired with the fact that the writing style varies quite drastically in quality. Not all women who have met cold jerks had alcoholic, drug addict or emotionally unavailable fathers. Not all children of alcoholics or drug addicts have a failed personal life. Hope you too would agree. I can agree that all our problems come from childhood, but to say that parents are always to blame for everything, that doesn't go well with me. Yes, the feelings of women in toxic relationships are described well. Excitement, fear, addiction, suffering, all is accurate. Problems with communication, decision-making, self-esteem too are detailed well. But beyond that, the author reduces everything to alcoholism and completely ignores physical attractiveness, common interests, the moment of social pressure, intelligence, charisma, charm, everything that attracts a person from the first, second, and the absence of other candidates if we are talking about a closed community. What would Norwood say about those girls who grew up in ordinary families and met successful and adequate men with whom they unfortunately ended up with a not so good relationship? Will she again look for daddy issues and alcoholism on both sides? Many women make the mistake of looking for a man to develop a relationship without first developing a relationship with themselves. They run from man to man, looking for what is missing inside themselves. The search must begin at home, inside ourselves. No one will love us enough to fill us if we don't love ourselves, because when we go looking for love empty, we can only find even more emptiness. Our lives reflect what lies deep within us, beliefs in our own worth, our right to happiness, what we deserve in life. When these beliefs change, our lives change too. Women who love too much stands as a poignant and insightful resource for anyone grappling with the complexities of their romantic life. Robin Norwood offers hope, guidance, and path towards emotional freedom. This book is not just about love, it's about understanding oneself and cultivating healthier relationships built on mutual respect and self-worth. This book will help you better understand why a person is the way they are, why they live the life they do, something we often don't understand from the outside. Hope you liked my review, and you know where to find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to share your comments. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or Spotify, kindly rate our show. Thank you for staying tuned till the end. See you in the next episode of Books.com. Till then, sayonara.